أقسم بالله العظيم أن يكون ولاي لله ثم للوطن، مخلصا لوطني ومدافعا عنه حتى آخر قطرة دمي، وأن أحافظ على وحدة البلاد وأمنها وسلامة أراضيها، والله على ما أقوله شهيد.
Saddam Haftar, Deputy to the Commander-in-Chief. Why Saddam?
خليفة حفتر ينصب نجله صدام نائبا له.
From here, the journey began. A fighter in the battle of dignity, without a title and without a rank. At that time, only a small circle of military leaders and fighters knew his true identity. Many may have fought alongside him without realizing they were sharing the dust of war, the weapon caches, and the shells of death with the son of the commander of dignity. Before dignity triumphed over terrorism and the army was reorganized, its ranks restructured, and its compass reset, the bullets of war did not distinguish between one soldier and another, between Saddam Haftar or any other fighter among the heroes of the battle. For the record, when Saddam was a soldier among the hundreds of dignity fighters on the battlefield, he was not planning to sit in the seat of command. A single shard of shrapnel could have struck him down dead. But fate chose him, and the reality of the battlefield imposed on the rising young man a mission of another kind. Courage in a strong presence and a steadfast silence with self-confidence, qualities that elevated Saddam towards the test of leadership and granted him the chance to handle major, thorny, and complex files. After his graduation from the military college in the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, with the rank of captain in 2017, the young officer was entrusted with security, military, and field tasks where he proved his ability in the face of humanitarian crises. He was the coordinator in the alleyways of Benghazi, the officer who led operations to strike drug traffickers' hideouts in the Buhid Daima area, Al-Wahishi, and the commander of the executive force, which supervised the removal of infrastructure violations and others. Then he was chosen as the commander of operations to impose security and stability in a geographical area open to long desert borders, overlooking 3 countries that have been under the rifles of chaos for decades, surrounded by crises, militias, a mix of mafias, gangs, and rampant tribal weaponry. Saddam, with the rank of brigadier in the Libyan army, was the safety valve of the Libyans' livelihood, the officer who led the mission to protect the oil fields across the Sahara Desert from the eastern region and from the Zoltan and Sarir fields to the southern region, reaching the Sharara and El Fil fields in the southwest. While carrying out his duties deep in the desert and overseeing patrols to safeguard Libya's oil and borders, he was at the same time striking with an iron fist the colonies of smuggling gangs and human traffickers in al-Aranib and Al-Qatroun in the south of the country. Before the brigadier at that time could complete the dismantling of the gang's hideouts and organized crime networks, Derna was struck by Hurricane Daniel, which compelled the young officer to stand before mountains of rubble to rescue whatever could be rescued in a defining moment of Libya's history as the city and the nation faced the deadliest humanitarian disaster they had ever known. On the ground of the Great Derna catastrophe, the cameras and media recorded the first public appearance of the rising general, steering the helm of command amidst the devastation at the heart of a massive inferno of wreckage and destruction.
I see lots of people who need help for electricity, water, aid, everything. Has there been a big enough international response, or you just don't want the international response? Everything's fine for the now, he tells us. Everybody's searching now and we're ready for help.
Now, why was Saddam and no one else appointed as deputy to the commander-in-chief of the Libyan Arab Armed Forces? Many questions may cross your mind. Did he come to the position through merit and competence, or did the marshal's son inherit command from his father? When you hear the man's surname, then read and watch what is broadcast by the channels of chaos and the media pages funded by the militia statelets. You may feel unsettled, perhaps silenced by the sense of standing before an authority monopolizing the army and the levers of decision-making in the state. But history and facts are enough to answer what stirs your fears. And the course of events blocks the tricks of the skeptics and restrains the drive of the media of lies and systematic distortion. Derna emerged from the neck of disaster, and after weeks of exhausting work to mitigate its impact, all units officers, soldiers, and non-commissioned officers received military promotions by direct orders from the commander-in-chief of the army in recognition of their efforts in the rescue operations.
بشكركم جميعا جميع اللي شاركوا جميع اللي شاركوا
نعم سيدي
يرقوا إلى الرتبة التي يليها ضابط جندي ضابط صف كلهم كل اللي شاركوا في هذا المقام هذا حقهم علينا.
Saddam was not an exception. He was neither less nor more than the other officers, and he emerged from the disaster with the rank of Major General in the Army, following his completion of military courses and training in Special Operations Command and the leadership of artillery and airborne units, and intensive training in managing military intelligence agencies, in addition to undertaking advanced courses in information security and military security technologies. In the Russian Federation, after a long training journey inside and outside Libya, Major General Saddam Haftar was entrusted with leading the operations room of the Libyan Army's ground forces. That promotion was a challenge of another kind and a new chapter in the series of grueling field tests on the ground of the South. Drug smuggling gangs and arms trafficking mafias, human trafficking networks, fuel, and food smugglers, alongside criminals and killers who feed on kidnappings and ransom. And more dangerous than all of these, groups of Chadian and Nigerian opposition forces occupying vast areas of Libyan territory in the south. Establishing, at the expense of the South and the stability of its people, military camps, security checkpoints, and settlements that contained a mixture of everything from human and fuel smugglers to drug and arms trafficking kingpins, and even organized cells affiliated with ISIS in Africa. Meanwhile, in the west of the country, everyone was busy with night parties and loud festivals, promoting celebrities and model visits, celebrating illusions of projects in the morning, and gathering the scandals of their collapse and failure by evening. The commander of the operations room in the ground forces, however, was leading the battle to impose security in the south, roaming deep into the desert, working night and day, setting up ground force camps along the borders, and overseeing the patrols that enforced security and stability there. He was waging a fierce war to drain the swamp of gangs and smuggling mafias in the far south, leaving the leaders of those militias and extremist groups either dead or wounded. The battle for the stability of the South elevated the rising Major General to the rank of Lieutenant General, and he was appointed as Chief of Staff of the Ground Forces in the Libyan Army. The irony was here, as some, as usual, assumed that his assignment to lead the Chief of Staff of the Ground Forces was a spoil of war, granted to him through blood ties and kinship, rather than as the result of a field reality that dictated his appointment. Others closed their eyes to the exceptional role that Lieutenant General Saddam Haftar played in the battle to build a professional national army, capable of waging major wars for the sake of Libya's sovereignty, stability, and the independence of its political decision through the gate of a strong army. An unprecedented, historic role that began amid the shelling of cannons and sparks of fire in the Battle of Dignity. It carried on through the flames of clashes in the battle to secure the borders and ended with taking the seat of the maker of grand balances between the capitals of the world, East and West. The rising Lieutenant General succeeded for the first time in playing the role of the strong military leader at home and the skilled diplomat who penetrated the capitals of global decision-making. You will see him on repeated tours to the African capitals of N'Djamena, Niamey, and Burkina Faso as an envoy of the Libyan army commander, weaving alliances, making decisions, and rewriting relations with neighboring countries to end the rebellion of gangs that undermine the security of the South. We saw him in the heart of Istanbul for the first time in 2024, attending the Turkish Defense Industry Exhibition by official invitation from Turkey's Ministry of Defense after years of estrangement and hostility, a striking and unexpected presence that carried its own consequences later in the heart of the capital, Ankara, with a Turkish military honor guard celebrating the visit of a senior Libyan commander during the meeting of the Lieutenant General with the Chief of Staff of the Turkish Land Forces and the Minister of Defense, who signed with the Libyan general important protocols and agreements of cooperation between the armed forces of the two countries. Then came the third meeting just a few months ago, a meeting that marked the general of the moment, breaking through the concrete wall of relations with Ankara, opening the door to flexible diplomacy after years of tense stances and fierce disputes with eastern Libya. And much more than that, the Libyan Lieutenant General, during his tenure as Chief of Staff of the Ground Forces, became a point of balance between the Russian Federation and the United States of America. He manages a knot of intersecting interests between the two powers inside Libya's borders and beyond, across the African continent, through repeated meetings with Russian generals and the leadership of the U.S. AFRICOM forces in Benghazi, Washington, and Moscow alike. Then came the surprise in the heart of Europe. The Lieutenant General sitting at the head of a military table that brought together the Chiefs of Staff of the Ground Forces from 15 countries of the Mediterranean Basin and Africa aboard the French carrier Charles de Gaulle in the city of Toulon by official invitation from the Chief of Staff of the French Army. And why not? Everyone knows the stature of the French rooster and its long history of dominance over Africa, but Paris has begun to realize the importance of the Libyan general in the new African equation and his grip on many of the strings of the game there through his exceptional relations with the leaders of the new Sahel Alliance, which has recently broken away from Macron's mantle and has come to enjoy the support of the Patwin camp, a camp that Saddam knows, and that knows Saddam well. You are before another point of balance in the African file, managed by the Libyan general holding its poles between Moscow and Washington on one side and between Paris and Moscow on the other. And just a stone's throw from Libya's western shores, there lies the European Union, the second most affected after the Italians by the issue of human trafficking and illegal migration. The Europeans are fearful of the file and exhausted by it as well, and so Rome became the spearhead of that fear, moving toward Libya's strong general, based on a deep understanding and study of the region's geography. He who controls Libya's land borders with Africa and manages the rhythm of the Sahara Desert is the one most capable of controlling its maritime borders and closing the file of illegal migration, flowing from the Black Continent and haunting the White Continent. Across the other shore of Libya's coasts, especially Rome, the gateway to Europe, it was Rome that received Lieutenant General Saddam Haftar in the offices of its Army General Staff and Ministry of Defense, as well as its land and naval forces, and even within the Ministry of the Interior, seeking agreements for support, training, and joint cooperation with Saddam and no one else. Arab Egypt presented Lieutenant General Saddam not only as a rising military figure, but as a leader for the most critical stage facing the land of the pharaohs amid growing regional pressure stemming from the fierce conflict in neighboring Sudan and along its northeastern border with the Gaza Strip. Faced with these pressures, Cairo found it necessary to support an exceptional general in Libya, one who combines the cunning of politicians with the toughness of soldiers, and who holds the keys to maintaining the imposition of discipline and stability along the Libyan-Egyptian border. Egypt's orientation toward the general was made powerfully clear during his most recent visit, where he was received with extraordinary warmth by the Chief of Staff of the Egyptian Armed Forces. Then came the shock from afar, from the southern part of the Asian continent, from the heart of the Pakistani capital, Islamabad. The Lieutenant General was there. He met with the Prime Minister, the Army Commander, and the Chief of Staff of the Pakistani Navy. And as an envoy of the Libyan Army Commander, he signed a military cooperation protocol between Libya and Pakistan. We are speaking of the 6th nuclear state on the list of the 9 countries that possess weapons of mass destruction on this earth. What amazes you most about Saddam is not only his military discipline nor his strong presence at the tables of decision-makers in world capitals east and west. Rather, it is that you see him among everyone and everywhere, at the front lines with the members of the armed forces, supervising their operations and following up on their security and military achievements, among the recruits in physical training grounds and military parade fields, with the special forces inside Libya and abroad. You see him at cultural and national events and among the tribal elders and dignitaries east, west, and south. And you may see him among the people, sitting with his family and brothers on the Corniche of Sirte, greeting the elders and taking commemorative photos with the young, a presence and charisma that did not come from nothing but were translated into reality by the reactions to the decision of his appointment as deputy to the commander-in-chief.
السيد المحترم الفريق أول ركن صدام خليفة بن قاسم حفتر.
نعلن عن دعمنا الكامل وتأييدنا المطلق
وتكليفه بمهام نائب القائد العام.
A scene too great to be distorted by cheap attempts to cast doubt on the competence of Libya's general and his ability to lead the Libyan army, to develop it, and raise its combat and administrative readiness in line with a national vision, launched by the Field Marshal, awaiting 2030 to reap its fruits.
يتقدم أبناء قبيلة العواقير المجاهدة.
تبارك قبيلة المزاوغة في ليبيا.
باسم قبيلة أولاد سليمان قاطبة.
تهنئة شيوخ وأعيان وشباب قبيلة زوية.
بكافة مكونات وتركيبات مدينة الكفرة.
وشباب الجبل الأخضر بمدينة البيضاء. بالتهنئة والتشريف للفريق أول ركن صدام خليفة حفتر.
Saddam proved himself in the field, in the training grounds, and among the unit commanders. He raised the army's combat readiness and set the rhythm of the ground forces, strengthened discipline and efficiency within its ranks, and consolidated its structure on solid national foundations. All of this was met by military and security division leaders, tribal elders, and dignitaries across Libya's geography, with dozens of congratulatory statements affirming their decisive stance. The man did not inherit the position, but earned it with merit through a journey that lasted for years of work, in silence and with effort behind the scenes, away from the lenses of the media and the glare of the spotlight. An entitlement built with professionalism, along the borders and deep into the vast desert. Saddam within the corridors of military decision-making and diplomacy across 4 continents, shaping Libya's presence and strength, making a vast difference in its relations and building its partnerships with the region and the world. He broke through the ranks of yesterday's enemies and rewove relations with them, entered the maze of challenges and conflicts among the interests of major powers, and emerged as a guardian of Libya's sovereignty and national security. Saddam was the key figure for all of Libya, its unbreakable bridge, and the leader who took on the mission of saving it from a bitter reality to carry it toward a bright future with a national vision and a formidable army. An army in which Libyans take pride in belonging to its ranks, carrying dignity in its uniform, armed with the pride of will among its units, and rising with the firmness of its soldiers' discipline and courage. A great army that stands as a symbol of Libya's stability, its unity, and our support for its sovereignty.